Have you thought about telling the stories of your success as a critical element of your career planning and your job search? Many of us really don't. We worry about specific interview questions. But a great story, a story that stars you, is a wonderful way to make your resume sing and get you those interviews and help you ace those interviews. What do I mean about a great story? Well, a great story is something that talks about an achievement that you had, something that you felt really proud of. And once you have that great story put together, once you can talk about where and what happened, what you did, and what those results are, then you can tell that story to an employer on your resume as bullet points, in an interview as a longer discourse, in response to any number of questions, because great stories have multiple levels of meaning, and you'll come across as a far more attractive, self-confident candidate. So how do you create this great story? Can I hear you saying, now wait a minute, I don't have great stories. Well, of course you do, but you have to replace the once upon a time with the situation or the task that you were facing. This is the way you set up the environment you are in, the project, the program, the problem you were solving. And you then define that. Write this down. You'll play with it a couple of times to take it from being merely adequate to a great story. But you want to start with that situation, that task, that environment you were in, so that people can understand clearly what the story's about. And then you move into the our hero arrives to save the day stage. That's the piece about what did you do? What actions did you take? What kinds of things did you lead your team doing? Did you help others do? What did you do to resolve that problem, to address the issue, to solve the issues that you were facing, to correct the problems in your environment? And then comes the third part of your story. This is the "and they lived happily ever after" summary, and that's the results. What makes this story a critical, compelling story is the results. The results, certainly, if you can quantify some of them, that's terrific. Under your leadership, you were able to reduce turnover. You were by X percent. You were able to turn around and save a $5 million contract with a client who had been disgruntled. But these results are also can be non-quantifiable results, because everything is not quantifiable. So you want to think, however, on what were the results, because that's what makes the story effective. And when you're telling this story, the hiring manager, the company that is interested in you, hears a story that tells them what you could do for them. And that's the question that every hiring manager wants to know. What's in it for me if I hire this person? So your story becomes the underlying basic themes that help them to know you and know that you could contribute to them effectively and quickly. The other values of these stories are, if you develop several success stories that are starring you in this role of the hero, then what happens is that those stories can be used to answer a wide range of questions. They're not just stories that have one small, limited meaning. What happens when you're telling them is you can be talking about your ability to communicate. You can be talking about your ability to deal with difficult people. You can be talking about your ability to analyze large quantities of data. You can be talking about your ability to work with users and define an effective system. But you can take several meanings from one story about any of those topics to answer the questions that an interviewer is likely to ask you. The other advantage of a story is that when you are telling a story, you may not realize it, but what happens is you become a much more confident, comfortable person. Your body relaxes. Your mind stops racing for the next question because you're telling a familiar story, one you've known and practiced well so that you're ready with it. And thus, you appear not only as an effective person, not only as someone who can contribute greatly to our company in the eyes of the hiring manager, but also as someone who is calm, confident, not cocky, but confident, and someone who I, as a hiring manager, am far more likely to make a connection with, and that connection is what gets you hired. So think about your stories and write them down, practice them a little bit, and you will find you have a better resume, you have a much better interview, and you have a far better chance of getting the job.